Welcome into another episode of Top Shelf presented by Enterprise. Big trips, sudden detours, or last minute plans, whatever it is, we're here for it. We are back with the full cast this time. I'm your host, Levi Smith, Cole Caufield, John Matisz, Josh Wegman, and we're back with another Olympic roster prediction. We did Canada last week. Felt pretty good about it. Some people, not some, a lot of people in the comments were upset about Connor Bedard. I wouldn't be shocked if he saw that video because he went and scored a hat trick the next game he played that very night. So sorry, Connor. We left you off. But we're getting into the American team this year. I mean, at this point in the world of hockey, it's 1A, 1B. It's probably the closest that these two countries have really ever been in terms of talent, I would say. So this is a big Olympics for us as Canada. But what I want to say before we get into this, and I was thinking about this on my way in today, we're going to try and simulate the coaches and the managers, how they pick this team. It's not going to be fully based off personal preference. But if these guys have their heads screwed on right, I don't know if I've been this nervous as a Canadian in terms of maybe the States could finally surpass us, because I think that there's a chance they could roll out the best roster we've ever seen in American hockey history. If you look back at last year's Four Nations, they obviously lost by a single goal in overtime. They were as close as they could have got, and that was with Jordan Binnington staying on his head. And mind you, the United States didn't have the leading point and goal scorer from last season, Kyle Connor. Scratched him in the finals. They didn't have the second leading American goal scorer, Tage Thompson. The sixth leading point getter that was American, Jason Robertson, not on the team. The eighth American point leader, who also happened to be a defenseman, Quinn Hughes, wasn't there. No Charlie McAvoy. There was a lot of holes on that team in terms of guys they could have plugged in. So this is going to be a fun exercise. This is going to be a very good team. We're going to do the same format as last week. So we're going to start with the locks, who we definitely think is on the team. Then we'll get into the holes that we have to fill. They came out and released their 6 guys on the team. So it's Brady Tkachuk, Jack Eichel, Matthew Tkachuk, Matthews, Hughes, McAvoy. We're going to start on forwards. So we've got the 4 guys there, the Tkachuks, Eichel, Matthews. We've also penciled in Jack Hughes, Jake Gensel, and then on the third line, Matt Boldy, Dylan Larkin. So there's some guys injured for sure, but it's the first time NHL
we expect
players.
Everyone to be back and healthy. There's no injury timelines yet that are legitimate concerns for the Olympic timeline. And yet is
they do have a lot of injuries though.
They have a lot
of those guys are out.
People are gonna look at this projection and go like half the team is injured currently.
No, seriously. But the other thing that you have to consider is this isn't the NBA All-Star game. This is the Olympics, and NHL players are playing in it for the first time in 12 years. If they're hurt, they'll be back. They want to be there. So, let's get right into it. We're starting on the third line where we've got our first hole on the right side. Josh, take it away. Who is your first guy here on this team filling in that spot?
I think this has got to go to Kyle Connor. I know you mentioned that he was a scratch in the Four Nations final, and I think that proved to be a huge mistake with other guys lower in the lineup not contributing. I know it wasn't a great tournament for Connor, but he deserves to be here. His scoring is lethal. I think he'll be highly motivated to prove what a mistake that was, too. So I think he's got to be here, and I think that's a good fit alongside Boldy, who can do some of the dirty work. Larkin's such a great skater, zone entry specialist, and Connor can go to work offensively.
Do you think they're actually going to use him, though? Like, that's the pause here for me, is it's like, sure, he deserves to be on this roster. I think he probably is on this roster. But there's so many great players that are available for selection for Team USA. If you know deep down when it comes to crunch time in a gold medal game like we saw at the Four Nations, you're going to scratch him for other players who are either injured and can't finish the game, or guys who are going to play on the fourth line and barely play over like 8 or 10 minutes. Like, you have to have a real conversation about whether it's important or not to take that kind of thing. So do you believe, after what we saw at the Four Nations, like Sullivan and the rest of the staff will actually use this guy?
I think they'll use him to start at least and see how the tournament goes, because I think he's earned that shot. And I mean, they did it at the Four Nations. They used him to start, but
he looked pretty bad.
Yeah, but he's got a lot to prove.
I think a theme from the Four Nations U.S. experience is that they kind of overthought some things at the forward group. You know, Brock Nelson over some really highly skilled goal scorers, and we'll get into a couple of them later. But like, I think maybe there's some lessons to be learned there if you're Bill Guerin, where it's like, you know, Kyle Connor, elite goal scorer, quick, Don't overthink it. Put him on your team. Is he your
Yeah.
14th forward ultimately when it comes to the gold medal game? Maybe. But does he pop off and is your leading scorer? Also maybe.
Yeah.
I do think a third line like this too could be sheltered a bit as far as these best on best tournaments are going to go, because those top two lines are going to draw all the attention, and maybe a fourth line is more defensively minded, soaking up those D zone draws.
That's true. That's a good point. I don't know if they have much of a leg up against Canada in terms of like seeing the weaknesses because Canada won, so obviously they're going to be there. And we had it too. We rolled out the same decor. It's like at least the States can kind of look at a certain spot and be like, okay, we need to improve here. At the same time, the players just need to play better. So that's always a thing. But
Also, be healthy is probably a good idea.
and
too.
be healthy. Yeah, that's another good point. But yeah, I think I would like to see, as much as I want Canada to win, I would like to see these guys make a concerted effort to actually put the best players out there. No more Chris Kreiders, no more Brock Nelsons. We'll get into those spots.
No more ghost roster, yeah.
Exactly. So, okay, we've got the third line finished off now. Boldy, Larkin, and Kyle Connor. Solid. That's all I'll say right now. On to the fourth line, and we have all of these spots needing to be filled. First, on the left side there, left wing. Who do you got there, John?
Yeah, let's go with the polarizing JT Miller. So
Okay. Back
on
the team.
a contending team, this guy's fantastic. He's, good vibes. He's super competitive. You want him on your team. On a non-contending team like we've seen in Vancouver, seeing this year with the Rangers, things go sideways a little bit. Well, guess what? The Team USA is going to be a contender, right? So
Yes.
I think that's not really an issue, the sort of like JT Miller personality aspect of it. On the ice, competitive, north-south. He was the third Kachuk brother, so to speak, at the Four Nations,
Yeah.
where they got together in a group chat, decided to have this brawl at the start of the Canada game. Like, I think he's very much a heart and soul guy, and not in like a, I don't know, Rob Zamner or whatever, Chris Draper, whatever Canada's done in the past, years and years ago. Like, not to that extent. He's worthy of a spot, but also, like, you got to consider the intangibles. And let's face it, like, this U.S. group is fairly young. Like, because they are a nation that's really rising and really rising quickly, they don't have, the Crosbys.
Yeah.
They don't have, like, Patrick Kane would be that guy, but he's not playing well enough this late in his career. So I feel like they would really value JT Miller, both as a leader and also just he really fits in well as a fourth line winger in a best on best tournament.
Yeah.
Like you said, yeah, I think he would embrace that role, that depth role really well. He'll be a checker. He'll play 9 minutes a night. He'll do that dirty work. I think he belongs on that fourth line.
How old is JT Miller? Does anyone know?
Like 33.
32?
So he's like basically the equivalent, because we had Brad Marchand in the exact same spot, and he gets to
That's
be
a good
there because
comparable.
he's a vet. But
I
yeah,
do not think it is a good comparison.
I don't think
one player is significantly better than the other.
I'm saying they're
I mean,
they're
he's
better,
an older
but
guy that's versatile.
in terms of it speaks to the youth of this American team, though, because that's kind of, we have him filling the similar role of just being an older guy, and he can be on that fourth line winger. And he's like 6-7 years younger than Brad Marchand. So JT Miller he's back on the team. We've just bumped him down a line because I think he was playing. He was on that fourth line.
He was
right?
playing top 9 a little bit.
Or
He
on-
was mixing in the bottom 6.
He was a little bit with on the left side with Boldy and Larkin instead of Connor, so we flip flopped that. But we got JT Miller, the center for the fourth line. Kyle, who do you have there?
Well, talking about the New York Rangers, of course, with JT Miller, Vinny Trocheck here at fourth line center. It's something that they've done in the past at Four Nations, and Trocheck is an interesting fit here because he's a rare right-hand shot in this lineup, and he's great at the face-off dot. So he ticks both of those boxes that you typically look for in this kind of fourth line center. He's a good power play player. Not that he's really gonna fit in like a top unit or anything like that, but he can give you some offensive minutes as well. And I think he can give you some defensive minutes additionally in this bottom 6, which is kind of what you're looking for. So I think in terms of a versatile piece that you're perfectly fine scratching and having in the press box, or having as a fourth line center that can give you 10 or 12 good minutes, I think he's just a solid fit, again, as a center. Because if you look at a lot of these great options for Team USA, a lot of them are either left-handed, which you don't want all lefties in the lineup, so he adds that to your lineup. But also, he's a center. And you look at a lot of these guys that we're going to leave off the roster here in a second, a lot of them are wingers. Mm-hmm. So you need some guys to take some draws, and of course you need either an extra guy as well that can step in and play center as well. And there's a bunch of guys in the top 9 that can shift to center if you need be. But if you want a guy that can replace somebody else on the bottom line, or just be on the bottom line in the first place, I think Trocheck ticks a lot of those boxes that you would look for in a guy that's just a solid fit as a fourth-line center that you're also fine bumping out of the lineup for somebody else that is maybe more high-end. So I think he's a pretty easy fit on this roster.
Yeah, I think this is a guy Mike Sullivan is really going to clamor for to have on his team, to go out there and take those key defensive zone draws, especially most other centermen are left-handed. So say you're playing Canada. Canada has a power play late in the game. Crosby's taking that draw. It's going to be on that left side. Trocheck gets to be on his strong side as well.
It's just important to have that option, right?
Exactly. And I think with Olympics, where, yes, you take 14 forwards, but you can dress 13, that gives you that versatility where he doesn't have to take every single regular shift if you don't want him to, but he can be out there for those key defensive spots.
Yeah, and he's returning too. He was on the team last year, of course, so I don't mind that at all if I'm USA getting a guy like that on my fourth line. I mean, it's a whole lot better than last Olympics, like Justin Abdelkader maybe might have been the guy that when they were rolling out there.
World Cup of Hockey, he was definitely on that team.
Yeah. So good for you, Team USA. You got a little bit of an upgrade there. On to the last spot, fourth line winger. This was last filled by Chris Kreider last year. I have a feeling he might not be on this team. Who do you have there?
There's a case for him, but
Kreider is having a good start to the year, but I think we got to go with Tage Thompson in this spot. Bill Guerin, the GM for US, made a big deal about having players go to the World Championship if they can, and Thompson was one of those guys, and he was lights out, helped them win their first World Championship in something like 86 years, OT winner. I think he's had a great start to the year, too. He's a huge guy. He's 6'6", so maybe he can embrace that sort of physical element to his game, even if it's not always there in Buffalo. Maybe that's something he can tap into more as a depth player.
Yeah, and I feel like he's been unfairly labeled as not a winner. It's like he's in Buffalo. No one's a winner there. Just by default, being in Buffalo, you are not going to win a lot of hockey games. And him and Rasmus Dahlin have not been the problem. Have they been, the solution to the highest extent? No. But what it comes down to with me with Tage Thompson is the last 2 seasons. So that's 100 games or so. He has the most 5-on-5 goals by 6 goals. The next guy is Morgan Geekie. So, are you going to leave that guy at home? I feel like that would be a mistake. We saw in Four Nations, as I talked about earlier, that they maybe needed just that sharpshooter somewhere in their lineup. And, does he fit on the first power play unit? Probably not, but could he be sort of the shooter on a second power play unit? Maybe. And I just think that he's got enough, fire in his belly, so to speak, that to Josh's point, if they say, hey, use your body a little bit more, become more of a grinding presence at this tournament, I think he's fully capable of that.
I can see the case for him being on that top unit. Just the one-timer threat that he has is kind of a unique element in this entire lineup, to where you probably look at some other players and are like, yeah, obviously they're on the top unit ahead of him. But in terms of that specific skill set, I could see a very good argument to have him on that side.
Especially the lack of right-handed shots.
Yeah. Exactly.
A power play unit with Tage Thompson winding up on one side and Austin Matthews on the other. That's fun.
Matthew could chuck down low.
Yeah, that's fun to imagine.
Terrifying.
So
It's going to be nasty.
it's going to be really good. Okay, so we filled out the first 4 lines. We have 2 extra forward spots. I'm going to rattle off some of the names here that you guys should probably be picking from, unless you go completely off the grid. But we have Cutter Gauthier, Shane Pinto, Jason Robertson, Matthew Nyes, Cole Caufield, Logan Cooley, Clayton Keller, DeBrincat, Kane, Palmieri. We got the Canucks, Besser and Garland. All of these guys left. Who do you start with, John, as your first forward?
I think Jason Robertson. Last year was a bit of a gong show for him, the start of the season, and he was left off Four Nations because he had foot surgery in the offseason, never really recovered. Honestly, didn't look great all year. This year, it's been kind of a night and day difference, 28 points in 22 games. And I just feel like I look at him as sort of the Mark Stone of the U.S., where he's not fast, but he's incredibly smart, and he can play with fast players. So he plays a ton with Roope Hintz, or has over his career. And you look at Mark Stone, he works perfectly fine with Jack Eichel, and even on Canada with McKinnon and McDavid. I don't know. I just feel like Robertson is so easy to just slide into literally any line and any environment. He could play left or right wing. I think he brings a lot to the table as far as being an extra forward here, at least to start, but could easily be slotted on the third, fourth line.
Yeah, I'm torn on him because I think he should be on this roster. I think he deserves to be on this roster. I love the fit with like the thing with him is always the pace of play, like you mentioned. But his biggest success in the NHL has come with a super speedy center in Rupe Hintz. So that it obviously isn't a concern. But if you're trying to be this team that plays to an identity of this warp speed team, you have so many other kind of high-paced players that you're probably taking Robertson over. So I'm kind of in between where I think he should be on this roster. I would personally pick him, but will they actually pick him is kind of the awkward part there for me. I think he ultimately will be on this roster, but it's an awkward one in between for me.
Yeah, he's certainly not a lock.
No, I think my thing with a guy like Jason Robertson is for these extra forward spots, like we talked about with Canada, and I vouch for like Tom Wilson getting in because he brings that physicality. And Jason Robertson is an awesome hockey player. Like, don't get me wrong, but in terms of your extra spots, like, is that a guy who just his play style at least is very kind of surface level, and he's just going to do everything pretty good.
He's not your prototypical bottom six player.
No, exactly. No. So it's like, are you going to bring him over like a guy that can just shoot the hell out of the puck? I don't know, but I believe
he scored 40 goals. Like, he's a kind of a dual threat guy.
He's really obviously he's really
he's
good.
super underrated.
Yeah.
He's super underrated. I do believe he should be here too, regardless of what else. Like, I think that he deserves to be on this team. And I mean, you look at that with last year's team compared to this year. The fourth line winger and the first guy off happened to be, like I said off the top, the second leading goal scorer last year
right.
that was American, and the sixth leading point getter. So. Hopefully they make these adjustments for the better of the team. We have one spot left on forward. Who are you going with Kyle Laska in?
There's only one name for this spot, right? Like, you just talked about somebody who can make a difference in terms of goal scoring.
I didn't want to say his
Cole
name.
Caufield has to be on this roster. You just look at what he can bring to this lineup, and he's that coveted right-hand shot, so that's a big bonus. But he is this clutch goal scorer that just brings this kind of different dimension to the roster. Everything that he brings is just something that this Team USA needs, where you look at the Four Nations and what was kind of the issue when it came to crunch time against Team Canada. You didn't have somebody that was able to break through and score a big goal. Yeah. Well, this guy leads the Montreal Canadiens all-time in overtime goals. And obviously that's skewed because of the 3-on-3 and everything like that.
But he's not like 35.
Exactly.
Yeah,
he's done it in a very short time. He's a wicked goal scorer. And I think we've seen an evolution of him over the past couple of years where he's become kind of this more well-rounded player and doing it on a line with Nick Suzuki. I think he's done everything to deserve to be on this roster, and I think it would be a big mistake if Team USA left him off.
So my question with Caufield is, if he's not scoring, what is he bringing to the table? Because he's small, he's not a great forechecker, he's not a great skater either for a guy who's that small. I could easily see this where if they take him, he maybe isn't making a huge impact offensively early on and just ends up being scratched the rest of the tournament. So yeah, I have real concerns about what kind of impact he can make all around against the best players in the world.
Would you rather bring a guy who could score you a big goal or a guy who's going to play you 6 minutes in the bottom six?
Sure. I mean, I think there's guys who can score at a similar level to him that also bring more, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
Little teaser for later in the show.
Yeah, I should add, we're going to do the same format as last time where we all have picked a guy that we believe deserves to be on here. At the very end of it, we'll plug it in, so thanks for
just finally on like the Caufield point, I think teams get in their head when picking the extra skaters.
Yeah.
I think you need to pick extra skaters for a tournament like this, especially that have that higher ceiling. That maybe is a player that you don't play the entire tournament, but somebody that has that higher end ceiling versus bringing a higher floor guy who, if you have one of your bigger players go down or somebody that needs to score a goal, you don't have those options. And it's a very smaller scale versus the Olympics. But I look at what Team Canada's done at the World Juniors the past 2 years. And I think that's been a real issue for them in terms of their roster selection, is going with a lot of guys who are either safer or picking extra guys who don't move the needle as much. And obviously when you're picking NHL players, they're going to be bigger needle movers than some more fringe junior players. But I think the process is kind of similar, where if you pick the players in your first four lines, that's fine in terms of the players you want to fit. But I think at least one of those extra spots needs to be a player who can be a game breaker. And I think for me, looking at the list of Team USA guys, I think Cole Caufield is at the top of the list of the extra guys that we have here for me.
With the rationale that Kyle's talking about, like if we remove Connor from the top 12 and put Robertson in there, I think you've got your two hired guns in Connor and Caufield. It's like Americans can't score. Okay, both these guys go in.
Roll
We
them
take out Miller and Robertson or whoever, right? So
Yeah.
I think the way that we have this set up maybe is not perfect if we're thinking about it in terms of like your hired guns or your extras. But I think the mix is good. The 14 guys, I think, is not only good to me, but we're trying to project what Team USA is going to do, and I think they'll do something very close to this.
Yeah, it's we talked about it last week with like Canada's back end. Like, do you throw in Travis Sanheim as an extra guy or Matthew Schaefer? Like,
Right.
two completely different guys, and if everyone's healthy and you can pick and play, it makes a lot more sense to have a good balance. But
Yep.
the thing about a Travis Sanheim, and it would be the same thing against a guy that isn't Cole Caufield, maybe a guy that's Shane Pinto or someone who can kind of shut it down a little bit more, is, God forbid, one of those guys who isn't just a pure goal scorer gets hurt, you can plug in a guy who can fill that role really easily. Whereas, like, if Dylan Larkin goes down, Cole Caufield just can't play Dylan Larkin minutes.
Yep,
So
yep.
that's obviously. Thankfully, it's out of our hands, but that's a big discussion you got to have. So I don't disagree. I think Cole Caufield should be there because I'm still in the camp of like bring a guy that can score if you can't score.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I'm picking this roster, it makes a bit more sense to have maybe a guy who doesn't have the upside, but at very least can just plug a role and fill it. So
I do like with our forward group, though, like Miller is a natural center. Tage Thompson has played a lot of center. So say there was an injury to Larkin, you could shuffle things around and they're pretty set. Like it's very solid group.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think Team USA just has it got. They've got it going on forward. They've got a lot of good names here, and I feel good about this. So we're gonna move on to the back end now. Like I said beforehand, they've already named two guys here: Quinn Hughes, Charlie McAvoy, and we've gone ahead and penciled in the rest of the top six are all locks in our book. So it's Jacob Slavin, Brock Faber, Zach Werenski, Adam Fox. We only have two more holes to fill. Starting with you, Josh. Who's the first defenseman that they have as an extra here?
This is a guy that's not a huge name yet, maybe for the general hockey fan, but Jackson Lacombe in Anaheim, I think he deserves to be here. He has become such a stud over the last year and a half, basically, taking that huge leap, playing number one D on Anaheim, who's become a really good team this year.
Big contract, too.
Got a huge contract that I think will age really well over time. This guy can shut it down. He can still move the puck. I think he would absolutely thrive in best-on-best fast hockey like this.
I see him a lot as a Werenski replacement too. Not like if this is if Werenski got injured between now and the games or during the tournament. I feel like you put him in Werenski's spot and you don't see much of a difference in terms of playing style, skating ability, all that good stuff. So I love him as an extra. Like I wouldn't put Lacombe in my top six at this point in time, but I do like the shout in terms of like I think Team USA really has their eye on him and are really seriously, strongly considering him, and I think it's totally warranted.
I don't mind Jackson Lacombe being here, and it reminds me a lot kind of again, if someone goes down in that top six, what Canada had with Thomas Harley coming in. Like you get a younger guy, left shot, big defenseman. Thomas Harley was awesome. For Canada's sake, I hope Jackson Lacombe, if he does get to step in, I hope he's not awesome, but he's got a good running to be a great defenseman.
I do think that's a great comp in terms of the player stepping in and kind of being this more unknown with the national team
player,
and stepping in and being that kind of guy.
A coming out party in a sense.
Exactly. And we've not everyone has seen Jackson Lacombe play, and I don't blame them because he's been on some bad Ducks teams and he's young, but like the rise that he had last year has been awesome, and he's very good. So if he does get in, I will definitely not be looking at it as, oh, they've got a weak link back there. This is a very good defenseman. On the right side there, who do you have, John?
Speaking of coming out parties, at the Four Nations, Jake Sanderson was one of those guys. Only played 2 games, but he did have a goal for the Americans in the final. And I love the versatility here. He can play both sides. His skating is incredible. His passing, his just long reach. Like I feel like he's well suited for IIHF rules, if that makes sense. He's not overly physical where, he might accidentally take a penalty by being over physical. So I think that when you look at the other options out there, maybe you'd like to take another right-hander, but I think that Sanderson has proven that he can probably slide over to the right side in a pinch, and it's not like the top 6 is lacking for strong right-handers anyways, so I like Sanderson here a lot.
I'll go a step further. I think he's a lock. I think there's no way that he's not on this roster, barring obviously a healthy season here. Everything you mentioned there, the skating profile, him stepping in at the Four Nations, all of that, I think he's much more likely to play like a top 4 role on this team than he is to either be benched or not on this roster entirely. I think USA really likes what he brings to the table. I was a little surprised that he maybe wasn't even on this roster to begin with. Comes into the roster, and obviously we saw what he did at the Four Nations. I think there's a strong argument for him on this roster and to even play like a pretty notable role on this roster as well.
Yeah, and the sort of elephant in the room is Adam Fox here. Like, I think he makes the team, but, you know, down year last year, he's sort of gotten back on the tracks this year, and Gavrikov, his defense partner, certainly helps with that. But
rough Four Nations last year.
He had a rough Four Nations, and like he's the type of, he's so cerebral. He's so, you know, his game is very based in hockey sense and IQ. He's not very fast. He's not very big. But I think that, you know, you still take him. I don't know. He's a former Norris winner. He can do a lot for you in terms of whether it's penalty killing or power play or, you know, even strength. Like, he's kind of a hard one to get a handle on because I feel like a lot of people in the hockey world have soured on him.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you actually look at what he brings to the table, this guy deserves to be on this team.
Yeah, he's having a really good year. I think he deserves to be there, but I could see his leash being somewhat short.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, again, speaks to the rise of hockey in the U.S. because you go back to like 2010 and the last defenseman on that team was like Ryan Whitney. No disrespect to Whit, but
Wow.
now we're talking about like a guy that's won the Norris, a guy that just got paid $1 billion, and like a guy who's an awesome defenseman for the Senators. Again, they're in a very good spot. Some of the names that we left off the list here. No Noah Hannafin, who was there last year, but I don't disagree with that one. No Lane Hudson, Mikey Anderson, Luke Hughes isn't here. And then on the right side, John Carlson, Jacob Trouba, Seth Jones. So all those guys we have off.
Yeah,
there's
the
some
one
arguments.
thing to note here is Lacombe, I like the fit there. There's a couple other guys I like the fit of. Do you take another right-handed guy?
Yeah.
I could definitely see them going with someone like Seth Jones, especially the way he played in the playoffs last year against elite competition like McDavid, shutting him down. I could really see Seth Jones being on this team, but it's really a toss-up.
Yeah.
The one I actually wonder about is Brett Pesce. Just
Yeah.
because of the Jacob
Interesting.
Slavin connection, the time that they played together. Brock Faber hasn't been amazing this season. Obviously, there's the Minnesota Wild stuff. He's going to be on this roster for a bunch of reasons. He was great at the Four Nations, but I wonder if Pesce could sneak onto this roster as the 8D and maybe be a guy that could swap in for Brock Faber. He's the other guy I think of, but I do think the skating of a lot of those left shot guys make them good options on the right side as well.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. So we got the decor, we got the forwards out of the way. We have one spot to fill left. We go to the goalies. Connor Hellebuyck, obviously a lock. We were talking earlier, like it's kind of a shock that they didn't lock him in already.
Yeah.
It's funny looking back at, right?
It is a little bit
He
strange.
runner up for the Hart Trophy.
yeah, like I don't,
Or whatever
yeah.
he ended up being.
Won it, yeah.
Won it,
Won it,
yeah.
never mind.
winner of the
Forgot.
Hart Trophy, but
Yeah, that is crazy.
He's not a lock, and then meanwhile, Canada's. I mean, they didn't lock in a goalie either, but Jordan Binnington. Apples to oranges, right? And then Jake Oettinger is the backup. We also all agree on that. One more hole to fill. Kyle, the third goalie. I don't know if this guy's going to get a ton of attention in the Olympics, but we still got to fill it out anyways. Who do you got?
Yeah, I got Jeremy Swayman here. Played a big role, obviously, for the World Championship team. And just a guy that has put up some good numbers in Boston, and obviously last year was a big down year. He's been much better to start this season. I think he's just a strong fit as the third goaltender here. There's a couple other names to kind of watch, and I think the big one right now is, of course, Spencer Knight, just given how good he's been. I actually think that Jake Ottinger's spot is a little more up for grabs, depending on what they want to do with the Swayman spot and if they want a younger guy in this mix here in a Spencer Knight. But for Jeremy Swayman himself, I think the World Championship stuff can't be overlooked in terms of that impact for USA Hockey. They've been wanting to get American players at that tournament for so long. They finally got a good roster this past year. They finally break that drought, and I think a goaltender, that was a big part of that. I think that's going to have him a very sure spot in terms of that third goaltender, in addition to his play early on this season being pretty formidable with the Bruins.
I think if USA was willing to take Swayman last year when he was at his lowest, having the worst season of his career, there's no way they can leave him off this year after bouncing back the way he has.
That's totally fair.
Yeah, completely. So the guy's off. Thatcher Demko, Spencer Knight, Dustin Wolf, Joey Decord. So I mean, nothing crazy.
Well, yeah, Spencer Knight would be the young guy.
Yeah.
That you're,
Yeah.
like if they're trying to groom a guy for the next Olympics, or just think like, hey, we're rewarding this guy who's been, you know,
He's also been the best goaltender in the NHL this year.
He's been really good. So, yeah, you could make the case for Knight, and I think you could obviously make it for Wolf too. But I just feel like Knight's sort of MVP level performance this year in Chicago is notable.
Like if Spencer Knight still has a 925 or whatever, December 25th, like is he on this roster?
I mean, I don't think so.
I still don't think so, but unless Oettinger or Swayman really craters, or Hellebuyck obviously is.
And like the
linger
USA
longer.
could also make the case that Oettinger is already their sort of young guy that they have under the wings of other guys. Like he's still, I want to say 24. He's still quite young.
Ottinger, I think he's like 26.
26?
Now, yeah.
He seems young.
Hey, 26 is still young.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah,
No, it's still fairly young.
But no, I think Swayman's a good pick, and I do like the what we're kind of alluding to. We'll see if it actually happens when they pick this whole roster. But like Swayman getting in with what he's done for the World Championships, Tage Thompson getting in for the same reason, well, obviously because they're also good. But it's funny to look at, like we're using that as key points of leverage because one of my favorite things to look back on the basketball side of America, they used to have a requirement where it's like you got to show up to summer camp or else you're not on the team.
Interesting.
And they started getting killed. So now you see they field rosters of guys who like basically the first time playing basketball in 2 months is the first game of the Olympics, and they're smoking everybody. So I appreciate at least our take on the hockey team here.
So one more thing.
Rewarding that a little bit.
Yeah, can you name those extra goaltenders again?
Yeah, so it's Thatcher Demko, Spencer Knight, Dustin Wolf, Joey DeCourt's the four guys we have.
All those guys start for Canada, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So that's going like 8 deep for Team USA or whatever the number is.
Yeah.
How many, like,
It's crazy.
you're probably going
They're at least
9, 10 deep.
They're at least the number 2 because Binnington just has the lore about him right now. But
true.
yeah,
Yeah,
But
Binnington has like an 870.
but
That's
can
a
he
good
flip
point.
the switch?
Yeah, like the eighth guy. Like I don't even know who Joey DeCourt. I guess he's starting for Canada, right?
If
Yeah,
you're just
can
going
we,
based
can
on
we still
like
get him that
quality of goal-
passport, by the way?
Yeah,
right.
That was a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true, but.
Sad,
That's tough.
Sad times.
That's
It's
tough.
tough, but hey, we
Tough
won
battle.
last year with him. Hopefully, do it again this year. We got one more thing to do before we get out of here. It is the Odd Man Out segment presented by Enterprise. We've each picked one guy that we believe should be on this team over someone else. We're going to start with you, Josh. Who is your one guy in, and who are you taking out?
So I think I made it clear who I'm taking out earlier. I'm taking out Cole Caufield, and in his place, I'm bringing in Cutter Gauthier. This guy is having a lights-out breakout year.
good.
He's big, he's fast, he's scoring just as much as Caufield, so he brings that goal-scoring element that you want, that game-breaking element. It's there, but I think he could also adapt his game to a depth role better. He's a great forechecker. I really think it would still shock me if he's there just because of the lack of resume that he
Yeah.
has right now. But I mean, this guy was leading the NHL in shots going into last night. Like he is creating opportunities and he's finishing them. I think he deserves to be there.
I think he's a great fit for this kind of roster. I would have him over a couple other people on this roster, maybe, but I would get the argument if you're wanting to be a bigger team that still plays with pace, why you might not bring Cole Caufield. I obviously made the case for Caufield, but I think Cutter Gauthier has been unbelievable this year, and like the shot generation is a huge factor here. You kind of look at this roster, and it's like you also need some puck distributors as well, so that's an interesting thing. But if you can get him a distributor, I think he's a great fit on this roster.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Gauthier's he has the role carved out for him, similar to what we said with Caufield.
If they leave him off, this could be like USA's pick of like looking at this roster a year from now. It's like you didn't pick Cutter Gauthier when
Yeah.
he scored like 45 goals that year.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, first guy there. John, who do you got in? Who do you got out?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Shane Pinto in for Vincent Trocheck. And
Yeah.
this is one of those things where it's like, I'm talking about this now, like in this moment, but will I believe it in a month? I don't know, because Trocheck's been injured.
Look at the hedge on John already.
Well, it's only fair. They're very similar players, both right-handed centers who are very good in the draw. You know, both can play the bumper on the PP. Both can be used in a power or penalty kill role if necessary. But, you know, Pinto, faster, bigger, younger doesn't really factor in here. But if you consider that Trocheck was just injured, it's like, you know, what's the wear and tear on that guy? So I just like Pinto as sort of an upgrade, a younger version of Trocheck here, where if you're going to have that guy as your fourth-line center, go with the young whippersnapper who can bring a little bit more to the table. You know, to Josh's point, the sort of physicality and making maybe Team USA bigger with Cutter Gauthier in for Cole Caufield to a similar extent. I think Pinto is like 4 inches and 20 pounds bigger than Trocheck. And Trocheck plays bigger than he is, but I'm blown away with Pinto's season, and the goal scoring is one thing,
Really good.
and it's hot and cold. But I like his full 200-foot game.
Killing penalties too. Yeah, he's been awesome.
Great in the face-off circle.
Yeah, I do like calling a guy young and then busting out whippersnapper immediately afterwards. That's really fun. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, right? Where it's like, do you have an eye to the future in terms of taking a younger guy who's a similar mold, or do you take the veteran in that bottom six role? Like, I can see an argument both ways. I think you probably have one of those two for sure on the roster, and the other one is probably off entirely.
Yeah, like this is totally my opinion. I think the USA will take Trocheck over Pinto. Like, don't get me wrong, but if I were picking the team, Pinto.
I think I would too, but yeah, it's the same old. Like, he was there. Trocheck was there for Four Nations. Like, he's just one of those guys that feels like we could almost like
they
lock
can
him
count.
in
They know
ourselves.
exactly what they're going to get from
Exactly.
Trocheck. But yeah, I like the upside of Pinto in that same
So
role.
do I. He's been so fun to watch. All right, we got two forwards that you guys have gone with. Kyle, are you keeping the trend going with the third forward?
I am going with another forward here. I'm taking JT Miller off. I really struggle with his fit on this roster in terms of just his season and some of the other players you'd be leaving off the roster. I'm bringing Clayton Keller in his place, a guy who was fantastic for Team USA at the World Championships. Again, we've been talking about it a lot, but I think it means a lot for Team USA in terms of the guys that went there and won the gold medal for Team USA. The big thing for me, I mentioned it when you talked about Cutter Gauthier, puck distributor. You look at this roster, and as you kind of get lower in the lineup, you start to get more and more kind of shot first, not as many puck distributors, transition guys. And I think Clayton Keller brings you that playmaking element. He's a guy that's been excellent in Arizona and now Utah, who hasn't necessarily played with those high-end guys as well. So I'm intrigued to see his fit alongside some higher-end talent. I think he's a guy that could give you important minutes at 5-on-5 in a bottom six. I think he's a guy who could step up and play alongside an Austin Matthews and be in a really intriguing fit alongside a guy like that. I think he could fit all over this roster, and versus somebody like JT Miller, who has not had a very good season this year and has some of those other concerns that aren't as big of a factor with Team USA, but I still think should matter in this mix. I think that Keller is a guy that could really pop for you offensively in a bunch of different spots that really kind of brings the ceiling of this Team USA to another level. And again, when you're talking about how tight these games are going to be versus Canada and probably against a couple other teams as well, you need some guys that can break the games open or get the puck into good spots for your top goal scorers. I think Clayton Keller's a guy that can do that for you.
We can go a step further and take Schmaltz. We can
Hey,
take
there you
Cooley.
go.
Let's
Yeah.
get an all Utah line. The fourth line, all Utah. Let's go.
That would be interesting. I do think if Jack Hughes' injury recovery lingers longer than they're projecting, I could see, like
That's
you
a good
said,
one. Yeah.
Keller coming in seamlessly fitting for him alongside Matthews. They have that connection dating back to the U.S. national team development program. He is that playmaker. You're right. They do lack a lot of playmakers. It's mostly finishers in there.
Yeah.
I think he would be a good fit. It's just, tough to find a spot.
And Logan Cooley's the other interesting one there, where if you want that center versatility, he's an intriguing option there down the middle. He's a guy that's an absolute rock star in terms of the pace that he plays with. Would be a great fit here as well. I think I would take one of those two. Keller gets the slight lean for me in terms of, I think, the experience factor he has. But I would definitely be taking one of those two Utah guys.
Well, and Josh brought up the Jack Hughes comparable and sort of like, what's his health like? You could even argue like bring both and then sort of have them interchanged, in terms of how well they're playing. Start with Jack Hughes, Keller's off as an extra, but like a quick trigger on putting Keller out there because he's a playmaker like Hughes, but like a little harder skill, I would say. And we saw at Four Nations, like Jack Hughes struggled pretty significantly in terms of not getting off the wall, in terms of just kind of being invisible out there.
Well, like we kind of talk about these guys on the bubble, and like a lot of the names we're mentioning, like Caufield, Thompson, Gauthier, like even Connor to an extent, all those guys are primarily finishers and not like those necessarily big playmaker types. So if you're trying to get a different type in the bottom of your lineup, I think Keller's a strong fit there.
Yeah, so we got Clayton Keller, we got Shane Pinto, Cutter Gauthier.
Give us a defenseman here, Levi.
I've got
Come
a
on.
Let's hear
defenseman,
it.
and it's going to follow this trend of just basically the USA's next Olympic team is going to be probably even better because we're just all picking guys that are like under the age of 25. So I'm going with Lane Hudson on the back end.
Okay.
So can Lane Hudson play at the international level with the best in the? I don't know on the defensive side if he can, and I think obviously that's why he wasn't even invited to the orientation camp.
Insanity, by the way.
Snubbed, which I agree is insane, but what he can do on offense is undeniable. He's the third He was like 5th in points last year amongst all, or 7th in points defenseman, 3rd American, and then this year he's the 5th American in defenseman scoring, 10th overall. So obviously we know that this guy can light it up on offense. And if you're going to have an extra defenseman there, it kind of speaks to what we were talking about earlier with these extra guys on the forward side. Why not just bring a guy who, if you're feeling a drought, if you need someone to maybe get the power play going a bit, a guy that can do that and is proven to do that, mind you too, he's so young, like getting a guy in the system to come up and do this. He'd do the exact same thing that they want to do with Jackson Lacombe. Like
who are you taking out?
I'm taking
Lacombe?
out Lacombe.
Yeah, okay.
So it's like 2 really young guys. You're going to bring them in early and kind of mold them and have them tailored to this USA program. Do you go with the steady stay-at-home defenseman in Lacombe? Do you go with the guy who could get it done on offense? I think both of them are fine picks. I just prefer Hudson solely based on what he can do on offense. If you need a little bit of an extra pop, bring him in. He can do that. I mean, we've seen it now for 2 straight years. Like, he's incredible. Lane Hudson's my guy that I'm picking in.
I would worry about him getting pushed off the puck a lot defensively, especially we saw how relentless the forechecks were in the Four Nations. It's going to be so fast. I do worry about him defensively a lot, especially if he's not playing a huge role and it's that like 12 or 13 minute a night third pairing role. Like, do you want a guy who's so high risk, high reward in a sense? I could definitely see him coming on if, say, Quinn Hughes, God forbid, got hurt.
Yes.
And they sort of need that dynamic presence back there. But yeah, I worry about his defensive
5-on-5
warts.
scares me a lot. Like, throwing Lane Hudson out there.
Because he's not going to
any
be
of those
quarterback in the
Canada
top
lines.
power play. It's
No.
kind of the same conversation with Canada with like take Bouchard, but it's like, well, he's not going to be quarterback in the top power play because Cale Makar's there. So
I would absolutely have Lane Hudson here as that last defenseman because, again, kind of goes back to my point about the extra guys in that ceiling, right?
Yes.
If you lose Quinn Hughes in the middle of this tournament, you're losing a lot of offense and kind of dynamic play from the back end. And as great as the rest of this Team USA defense is, I don't think there's anyone that's quite that high-end kind of difference maker. Werenski's there a little bit.
in that category.
But I think we look at what happened at the Four Nations, and I think if you had somebody that was a bit more of that puck rusher and that kind of really shifty, dynamic defenseman, one more guy like that, like I don't think you can lean solely on Zach Werenski in that kind of role. And I think there's other guys that are good there, but I would absolutely have Lane Hudson as my extra defenseman there instead of Jackson Lacombe to be that guy that if anything happens or if you need more offense or if you need more dynamic play from the back end, you have the great defensive players there, certainly, but you can't just lean on that defensive play as well. I think Lane Hudson is perfectly fine enough defensively, and I think brings you a different level offensively that could really kind of, again, change the entire nature of your defensive structure.
And let's not forget, too, some of this is a pick for, like, we want him out there this Olympics. Some of it's also we want this guy to play for Team USA in his career because we all know what his dad said. His dad said his boys are Canadian, too. So who knows? If USA leaves Lane Hudson off of this roster, will he ever suit up for them if they ever bring him back? I don't know. It's an interesting thought.
Yes, he will.
Canada
I don't
wouldn't
know if
mind.
Rob is aware with the strenuous IIHF process of switching countries. But,
Yeah, this isn't AAA hockey with your 9-year-old here. You can't just move the pieces on the
he's just
chessboard.
relocating. Yeah, no, it is.
It would be a lot more interesting discussion if he'd never played an IIHF appearance for Team USA. But because he has, if you're unaware, it would be a 4-year process, and he would have to declare like now and then begin that 4-year process.
It's also like
it's very far-fetched.
I mean, you're talking about, and obviously good for him for really uplifting his son, but you're talking about a dad who's talking about his second-year son playing in the NHL in the Olympic team. Like, that's not, this isn't the World Junior team or even something a tier below. Like, this is the Olympic team. I don't think you get to talk your way into having your son suit up for them.
Also,
unless he did. Maybe he did. I don't know.
We'll see. I think he did.
If I recall correctly, he did the interview in like his car too. He was like it's like pure hockey dad. Like he probably went to the rink after and was yelling.
Awesome.
Like,
So awesome.
Love it.
It's also funny the idea of like, well, if he's not making USA, you think he's making Canada?
Yeah.
Like,
it's not like it's Latvia or something.
Yeah.
But there we go. We've got USA built out, so we built out 2 of the teams now. Feel great about both of them, honestly, and I'm excited for these rosters to get revealed.
Well, I feel great about Canada. I'm
Feel
a
great about
lot
Canada.
less great about Team USA because of the implication, of course, for the gold medal game.
True, it's true. But I think we hit the nail on the head with both of these. Let us know in the comments if you think we didn't. Again, like a Connor Bedard situation. We love to hear it, regardless of how upset you are with us. We're gonna do this a little bit more, I think, with some of the other teams. There's still like we're forgetting. There's the teams that like we didn't even get to we haven't seen in like 12 years because it was just 4 last year. So the Czechs or Slovakia. Like there's teams here
Switzerland's gonna be good.
Switzerland's going to be
Germany's
good.
fun.
We haven't seen them put together an NHL player-oriented team in quite some time. So I'm sure we're going to touch on all of those. But again, for everyone in the production room, for everyone here, we'll be back next week. It was a pleasure once again. This has been Top Shelf presented by Enterprise.